This is John Decker. It is 11:03. This is Coffee with Community Services for July 8th of 2022. As per usual, this is a recorded meeting that will go up on YouTube in about a week, so you can find out additional information. As usual, we will introduce some of our ACRC staff. I saw Tracy Brown on here, Associate Client Services Director, and I see a Community Services Specialist. I see Shirley and Christina and Kelsey, and I see Marty and Gary here as well, and I see Scott there, and I see Rima, our Deaf and Hard of Hearing Coordinator. Morning. And I will continue to try to talk not super fast when we have interpreters as well. And then also I see that we've got my assistant Zach there, and I'm sure other folks that will be kind of joining us as we move through our meeting today. Met with our managers this morning. We've got a few different things to go over with you. We want to discuss the alternative services. We want to have an alternative services discussion. We want to discuss about some opportunities with the State Council on Developmental Disabilities for program development grants that are available. We want to talk about DDS employment grants that are available. I think the bidders conference was yesterday or the day before, maybe, or it's today, right? We'll figure that out as we look at the information from DDS. And then of course we are going to be sharing about HCBS remediation, validation stuff, answering hopefully as many questions as we possibly can without Cindy Lay here with us. But again, we have a lot of these materials that we've put online as well. As always, and I see we've got, let's see here, what are we up to? We've got 50 participants that are on right now. So as always, as we are going through our discussion here, let's make sure that you keep information in the chat if you have specific questions. And certainly I will say, because I see that some folks have introduced themselves in the chat, if you are a participant in this meeting, and I'll be honest with you, I don't always scroll to page 3 to see who all is there that doesn't have their cameras on. So if you do want to say hi, let your community services specialist know that you're here, or you're welcome to do that in the chat as well. Again, I do hear from folks that they attend these meetings, but I don't always get to acknowledge everyone unless folks kind of answer questions or speak up in the meeting. But we certainly do appreciate our service providers trying to stay as up to date and current on things with the regional center and our service delivery system as possible. And then I think I might ask Michelle to share a little bit about the VMRC ACRC collaborative that is going on right now for hiring. I know we're going to probably have an update about it next Thursday at our provider advisory committee, but so we'll get to that, and I'll have Michelle and I can kind of talk about the activities that have gone on even this week, even yesterday. We had an additional meeting about it. So, and I don't know if we have an official name for that, but I think we're calling it the Alta Valley Mountain Collaborative right now, which is about as creative as we can get, I think. And Jordan Eller is on here as well, another one of our community services managers. Olivia Procida, I don't believe is on here. And for some folks, they might be learning today that Olivia Procida will be leaving us. Olivia is going to be staying at home and will not be working for the regional center. So we are currently in the process of ensuring, obviously we've got coverage with our other managers, and but wanted to share with folks because we know that a lot of the vendors that work on the adult side of services participate in these meetings and are certainly very used to working with Olivia through the pandemic and all of the challenges that we faced. And I will just say that I will do our absolute very best to get someone into that position that can provide you with the type of supports that you got, from Olivia, and the guidance that was able to be given to the staff. We have a lot of really good community services specialists that really stay up on like the supports that are needed for you as providers with information, things like that. But again, Olivia certainly did make it a lot easier to get things done for service providers during the pandemic, especially when it was really tough for folks. So again, we will work to get another manager in that position that is going to, again, provide that same type of level of support, both to you, externally as, service providers, but also internally to our case management staff as well, because again, these community services staff really play a large resource internally as well to case management, clinical accounting, etc. So anyways, just wanted to put that out there as well. With that, and not to keep talking about people being gone, but I will actually not be here next Friday. And so Jean and Jordan are going to be, and I believe Cindy will be here as well, talking about HCBS stuff. We've got kind of a number of different things to go over with folks. All right, so to get into the discussion, and then one thing I wanted to know as well, I know we went over kind of a high level budget, summary. There is some additional budget information that is available if you would like another kind of review of the budget information. Just drop it in the chat. We can ensure that we give you some real highlights towards the end of this meeting today, and then we can give you I think what would be very helpful is the document that was created by the Acrc and UCP that gives a budget summary. And specialists, I think I sent that out to everyone already, right? The UCP, or the Acrc UCP collaborative with the budget summary. Yes, no? Everyone read their email? Marty said yes. All right, so there is a website that has that budget summary. If you can drop that in the chat, one of you specialists, that would be very appreciated, because again, ARCA does not have any more detailed information than what I provided last week, which is, I'm going to be mindful of acronyms. The Association of Regional Center Agencies does not have any additional budget explanation, but the one that the Acrc put out with their Monday morning memo, I think is what it was, is a lot more in depth. So if one of the specialists could drop that in the chat, that would be much appreciated, and we can take some time to look at. Oh, we got a couple there. There you go. Final detailed budget summary. So again, we can talk about some of those areas. I did get a little bit of clarification related to the 1 to 40 caseloads for the EI, well, I guess EI plus, under 5 and under. So I got a little bit more information about that as well. So let's see. Let me jump over to alternative services, and this is going to be kind of a discussion here, and I'm hoping to elicit some responses, particularly from you day program providers and transportation providers. So I've had an opportunity to have a number of meetings this week since we learned that alternative services will be ending effective December 31st of 2022. Meaning January 1, there will be no alternative services billing. I will say good morning to Heidi this morning from Grass Valley as well. I saw Heidi's Grass Valley staff got mentioned by our executive director today and acknowledged for their awesome work. So we always appreciate Heidi also logging into these meetings to keep herself up to date on the things that are going on with our system too. So alternative services, talking about what happens January 1 when we've had 2.5 years of services being delivered a certain way, and now we aren't going to anymore. It's going to go away. It's going to, the faucet will be turned off as it relates to that type of billing. So the issues there's a lot of issues that are around this, and I kind of want to talk about them here, which is, well, I guess let me do a poll here. Let's see. Do we have any community services specialists that can guess how many clients we have that have alternative services authorizations for our regional center? Please unmute yourself. I have to hear the answer. How many we have 28,000 clients.
My best guesstimate is a lot.
Very good. That is correct, Kelsey. We have 4,000. We have
Wow.
4,000 clients that have alternative services authorizations right now. That's 4,000 IPP addendums. So just thinking about next steps, right? Talking about alternative services. What I'm hearing from transportation coordinators, our internal staff, what I'm hearing from our specialists like Marty and Kelsey that work with the vendors And what I'm hearing from the vendors is that we currently have an impossibility to rebuild transportation routes while we concurrently have day programs functioning at a variable schedule, likely 1 to 2 days a week. We have a very small number of programs that are back to, or excuse me, that maintained full time. So let's just think about the next few months here and talk about where we're going to be January 1. The challenges that are faced is we have to now assess our clients and figure out what's going to take the place of those alternative services authorizations. Because we've been paying people for the last we will have been paying people for the last 2.5 years for alternative services that were needed for the client's IPP goals. So what service is going to replace that? Is the individual interested in returning to 5-day-a-week day programming? Is the service provider able to provide 5 days a week day programming? We can't wait until January 1 to kind of figure these things out. We have to look at what is the need going to be, and also how can we make this shift from the billing for alternative services and the revenue that's come in from that, the decreased costs that have been faced by service providers related to that, and a shift that will go back to the way that you were traditionally vendored to be able to bill for your services. So the question is, how do we go about doing this so that come January 1, we don't have a whole service system of clients wondering where they're going to go, how they're going to get there, and whether or not their program is going to be offering those in-person services or not. It seems prudent to me in the discussions that I've been having this week that we look at trying to, in essence, look at a warm shutdown of the alternative services. That we look at having all clients either transitioned or not transitioned back to the services that the traditional services that they are wanting by December 31st, so that January 1, we have new authorizations in for services for those traditional activities. The challenge that we're facing is the programs are going to have to let us know whether or not they are planning on reopening for full 5 days a week. Now, we're going to have vendor forums coming up where we're talking about the rate models and things like that, and we're going to have further discussions about this. But for transportation companies and primarily for day program service providers, we need to have some real serious discussions, in essence, over the next 3 months. And it can't be around, we have a lack of staff. And I apologize because I see Jody's comment there, and that is exactly what we understand. Everyone has a lack of staff. The question is, what are you going to be able to do or not do with your lack of staff? And you need to let us know that. Like, we need to know as the regional center what services are going to be available and not available for our clients. And that means you guys have to let us know. You have to start, if I hope that everyone has already started looking at this for their own programs, but it really is imperative as it relates to day programs that you have done this, math and looked at whether or not we can get you back to a point where we can start referring clients at the level where you were prior to the alternative services. And as soon as possible, please do not wait for months, because we need to be able to give responses back to planning teams as soon as possible. We need you talking with your community services specialists about this, letting them know what the plan is going to be, what your challenges are. Again, I had a meeting with a transportation provider this week. I've had vendor meetings with a number of different providers related to their alternative services delivery, and I'm just very concerned. I'm concerned that the transportation providers are not going to be able to build back up the routes because because we don't know yet whether or not the clients are going to be able to return back to those programs. So I would love if folks would be interested in maybe unmuting, and I will not be at the provider advisory committee meeting on Thursday, but I'm hoping that you guys talk about the end of alternative services at the provider advisory committee, because the provider advisory committee, being a lot of experienced service providers, I'm hoping can serve as a resource to our other providers that might be really having challenges figuring out whether or not they are going to get back to their previous capacity as well. And so yes, um, so let's look at the comments. So obviously we have the lack of staffing concern, right? That is a huge issue right now. My feedback that I've gotten is, the lack of staffing has been the direct connection to the, ongoing 1 to 2 day type of day programming, as opposed to it per se being at the client's request, only. And yes, thank you for these guys for these comments. And I saw that a couple people turned their cameras on too, but let me go through these comments real quick. And then I just want to have some discussions about this, because I want to hear what you guys are thinking about this as providers. You've got a bunch of regional center staff on here as well that, are going to be certainly impacted by the alternative services ending. And I say all of this because we don't know the extent to which DDS is going to be providing assistance and support, like as alternative services are going to be transitioning over the next 6 months, or I should say ending over the next 6 months. There are so many budget things that need to be operationalized. And so this is why we feel like we really need to have these discussions with folks. And so I'm going to go back up to the comments real quick, and I want to read through the comments, and then I want to open it up, and hopefully we'll see if some folks might want to unmute themselves and talk about this a little bit. And I really hope you understand exactly where we're coming from with this as well. We just want to plan as early as we possibly can. We did not have the finality of alternative services being canceled until the Budget Act got signed. And so now we have to live with kind of the reality that they're at. So from more, that is all fine. We have had the discussions of lack of staffing. The other limitation is CCL, is social distancing, masking, etc. I would love for us to bring CCL kind of into this discussion as well, so that we can talk about some of these specific issues. So with that, I know community services specialists that we've got Monday, I believe, with CCL, and I think we'll have our residential managers in there as well. Jordan, I think you're in there, right? And so if anyone has anything that they would like us to have a discussion specifically related to CCL, and so Jody, I'm thinking about you, for example, if there is something that you would like us to have a discussion with CCL related to the challenges with social distancing or masking, trust me, alternative services, like a warm shutdown gets blown up when you have a big COVID surge in the month of November. We get that, right? Like that's one of the things that we also have to be mindful of, is that we don't know exactly what position we're going to be in COVID surge wise, but we have to plan that we are not going to have that, and that instead we have to figure out how we're going to have services in January. So if we could get a message over to Jordan Eller, J. Eller at alterregional.org, and she'll drop her email in the chat, because we would like to have that engaging discussion with CCL to talk about how we can address this issue, and what supports we can provide to you, through this. So, and Jody, I saw your hand up too, so I'm going to get to you first, actually, after I finish the chat questions. But the lack of staff is the number one issue, and day programs can't change that in 6 months. And what Jody said, yep, and agree with Sheila as well. All right. And let's see, same for transportation. Even Alta feels the staffing crunch. Absolutely. I think I shared with folks last week that we had such kind of tremendous turnover during the time when folks were resigning that the length of time that people worked at our agency, like overall, dropped from like 9.3 years to like 8.3 years. And so very, very certainly felt the crunch of that. And only now are we starting to kind of build up and hopefully are going to be retaining some of all these new staff that are coming into the agency. I certainly am very pleased to see all of the hiring that's going on, at least right now. Just seeking clarification on the half-day billing being rescinded. Does that mean day programs can't bill for half days? Yes? Specialists, would we agree with that answer? That if the half-day billing was rescinded, that you can no longer bill for half days? I think that's what the answer was for that one as well. Let's see. Will social distancing and masking still be in place? So absolutely. Let's Jordan, at minimum, let's make sure we bring up social distancing, masking, and the challenges that are going to be faced by our site-based providers that are licensed, and in essence, what we can do. So, for example, if you had a site-based program that consistently ran at 30, but your site really can only accommodate social distancing of 15 clients, we need to know what your plan is. Are you planning on doing 15 clients every single day? Are you planning on what's the plan that you would like to see? We need you talking with your community services specialist. The specialist will be updating resource notes so that when we have issues and questions about a day program, we can jump right into those resource notes. And I should say, or if there's questions about the transportation providers as well, because if transportation providers have been doing a very good job keeping up communication with the challenges that they're facing right now. I don't know the extent to which day programs have somewhat gone dark, but we have not been talking a lot about the 1 to 2 day and the impact that that's been having, but we need to start having it now. So yes, social distancing. I will not have the physical space to have all return, even if COVID have full staff. So exactly, Dennis's point is exactly. So what does that space look like then for you guys? What would be the maybe the percentage of individuals? What was the answer to Claudia's question? Did I miss that? Only full days. It was reported yesterday that the latest COVID variant is not responding to the vaccine. Yeah, so we can certainly discuss that about COVID and the challenges related to that. While we can currently also plan to transition alternative services by the end of December, because it looks like that's going to have to continue concurrently. So, Jody.
So alternative services for us has supported the people that cannot tolerate masks, so we've been able to go into their homes, support them in those ways. So if they come back to program community care licensing, this is for the community care licensing portion, how are we supposed to support them if they're not vaccinated, won't wear masks, things like that?
Perfect. So I think
those are our biggest challenges right now with some of the people that we're supporting under alternative services, because they don't wear masks, they're not vaccinated, just to keep the whole population safe.
Excellent point, Jody. And again, these are all going to be things that really planning team discussions are going to need to occur, right? And that's kind of the prompting for this whole meeting here is, and the discussions that I've been having with Michelle Johnson this week and with Lori Benalis about, like, we need to get things figured out here. And it sounds like 6 months is far away, but we already saw in the chat, you can't fix our employment problems in 6 months. And so again, how do we deal with the realities that are confronting us? Like, what is the best way to do that? And I think it's really going to land on excellent communication and as much planning up front as we possibly can do. Andrea.
Okay, hi. I have a question, I guess, sort of along the same lines, but kind of different. So as far as alternative services purchases will be ending, but we're still providing some traditional supports in an alternative location. So those were kind of two different, like maybe we have a traditional purchase of in-home supports where we're doing our, community training in that way. Would that be an option after January, as we're 100% community based? So not everything's open, or places to either go, you're still trying to do meaningful activity, but there's not necessarily, or we're going to have to reduce hours of the day because there's not.
What we wouldn't, what we will, yeah, what we're going to need from basically every vendor number that you guys have is what your plan is. If your plan is that you would like to still have something both, traditional, but providing because for some services, they're going to continue to be allowed to do remote services that previously we weren't doing remote services. And so, but those alternative services, billing authorizations are going to end because alternative services are going to end. And so, and thank you, Sheila's question is perfect for the next thing that we're talking about. What if some participants do not want to return to traditional and really like alternative? With PCP, how would we do that? And again, that's the service coordinator's charge, right? We had 2+ years of alternative services. I've had service coordinators that have told me the value. I think I've talked about it here. I've had service coordinators talk to me about the value of the alternative services, engaging people that previously were not as engaged in any services, and now they're willing to do it. Which I had one out of the SLS unit that talked to me about that just like a week or two ago. So again, I see Carol here this morning. Good morning, Carol. Wilhelm as well, from our SLS and DEF unit. And so with that, I think that is the big question, Sheila, and that's the question that needs to be answered by the planning team. And that's why we need to start asking these questions now, because we know that, like, you know those individuals, right? You know those ones that are, benefiting, you feel like, really strongly from the alternative services and the things that are going on. We hope that you'll play that active role in the upcoming planning team meeting when it comes to talking about how we are going to replace those activities that people have really, I don't want to take this opinion that people did not thrive or really enjoy the alternative services that they got. I think that's going to be on an individual basis. We know that there's some people that want to just get back to the way things were previously, but not everyone does. And with that, that's across the board. That's not just people with developmental disabilities. Everyone's looking differently at how they view, how they spend their days, right? We're doing this meeting virtually, and for how long, who knows how long we'll continue to do it virtually like this. And this is something that we would have never thought of doing before, per se. And so again, it just speaks, I think, Sheila, to the importance of that assessment being conducted, and the voice of the service provider that has been delivering those alternative services, and honestly can speak to them better than we can, because we by and large in community services don't really know what you're doing, because we're not regulating it or providing really oversight for it. And so you guys are going to have to play an important role in that upcoming planning team meeting to discuss the end of alternative services, because again, we can't be a big resource. We certainly know what you're vendored for and what that service looked like, and those ratios and the locations and everything else. So between now and hopefully as soon as possible, I don't know, we don't want to do another meeting with vendors about all of this until after the remediation plans are due for HCBS in a few weeks, because we can't have you do 100 things at once every month. So, but in this case, I think that it would be good for us to, have continue to have these discussions during our coffee with community services. And we are looking at doing some trainings for our service coordinators related to alternative services towards the end of this month as well, to give them really clear guidance on kind of like next steps and things like that. So Michelle's working on, I think, a date for that towards the end of this month. Community services staff, I see Jean's hand kind of going up, and case management staff. If there's other folks within Alta that kind of want to comment on this as well, but Jean, I'll throw it to you next.
Okay, thanks. I think, we've talked about this, John, that this isn't over, and this is another hurdle we have to get over. And I think we're not gonna have answers for what down the road. The only thing we know for sure is alternative services is going away. We don't know what COVID's going to look like. We don't know what the masking's going to look like. We don't know what's going to replace alternative services. So I think there's in the staffing issue. So I think there are going to be hard decisions need to be made with our vendors that are going to impact our clients, and hard decisions are going to need to be made on how we're going to get through this with alternative services ending. And it may lessen resources, it may lessen options. We are just trying to prepare to really help our clients and the vendors navigate through it the best we can. And the end result is going to look very different. And the hard decisions are going to need to be made, I think. And so as much as we can support our clients and planning teams and making those decisions on what people's lives are going to look like now that we're supposedly post-COVID, which will never be. But we've got the funding trail is what keeps us alive, and we have to kind of deal with that as we go along. So we're really trying to support our clients and families and you guys in really making a plan with all the unknowns, staffing, COVID.
So just talking about, thank you very much, Gina. And in talking about that and talking about the process. So what did we tell you already? We have how many people? 4,000 clients that have alternative services authorizations. I don't know how many, but many, I mean, a number might have multiple alternative services authorizations. And again, Sheila's question is very pointed there in the chat. What if some participants don't want to return to the traditional and they really like the alternative? If we're doing person-centered planning, then what are we providing as the alternative to the alternative services for folks? Additionally, Hillary's got a question in there. I have two ARF clients in my facilities, and they like the fact that they've been able to do a in-home day program. What are my options to continue the at-home day program with clients if they choose to do so? So I'm trying to think logistically here, and I want feedback from you as service providers. We have dealt with issues where we're gathering information by having you do what I just said, which is reach out to your community services specialist that's assigned. However, we've also done things like done a Google survey. And in the Google survey, we've asked specific questions about how, like, your, for hiring challenges for a number of different reasons. For you as service providers that are doing alternative services, would it make more sense for us to create, in essence, a survey that you can fill out that allows you to indicate, for example, what percentage of your capacity will you be able to serve through traditional services, effective January 1? Like, what is your planning look like right now as it relates to that? Like Dennis indicated, we don't have the physical space to offer physical distancing. We think that even if alternative services is gone, we're still going to have a requirement for physical distancing. Therefore, we can only serve 20 out of the 30 of the capacity for our company. So that is an option as well. That might be a little bit easier on service providers because all you have to do is just click on that pretty easy Google survey and then submit the results. And then for us, we could have all of the results of changes to alternative services aggregated on one spreadsheet for us to be able to provide access to maybe like our case management staff, and then to ensure that we get, program design updates and things like that. So for service providers, because so many of you might be looking at changes to, like, whether or not you're looking at alternative services going back to the way they were before, you might be closing out your vendorization. What are your thoughts about us putting out a survey to the providers? And this would be a brief survey because this is not writing a program design addendum. This is giving us information about where you're at kind of in the planning process and helping us advise planning teams So what are thoughts about that? All right. Maybe Dennis can help me figure out what the questions are going to be since he's already ready to fill it out. Um, but no joke, I really do like something simple to give out to you guys. And okay, now let me ask this for those that are on the pack and have heard the challenges that people have brought up related to languages and the languages that are spoken by your staff. What if we also had a Dropbox of our languages that are like our most common languages for our regional center for you to do a little checkbox as to whether or not you have current staff at the same time that can speak any of those languages. We know that that changes. We're really trying to figure out a way for us to be able to like have that information up to date for our community because we keep hearing community feedback that we don't have a good way to capture that information. And so survey, and then maybe programs complete an assessment with each client, and with that information, address a plan to move forward with individuals' wants. I think absolutely every one of your clients should be being assessed that are receiving the alternative services to ensure that they still want those services. And as those services would look to transition, yeah, absolutely, please do. Because again, the clients, you're providing the services day in and day out, and we're not there. The service coordinators aren't there. So you're going to be really important. We might have staff that speak that language, but no opening for services. Oh, that's very good. And I think that would be something that would be good for us to share. And again, I don't know that we'll end up in that, but while we're doing a survey, I hate to send out like a bunch of things at once to you. And if I can just add one survey question that kind of addresses this other big community issue that has been brought up for us, I think it'd be nice. We're going to do this assessment with our participants. How many truly will not return in person? And that I think is the big number, right? That's the thing that we really need to know, because we also need to know, like, are you going to be able to survive as a company? And then what other referrals can we give you guys? Like, so that if you are going to be able to serve people, that we've got the ability to move business that way. Eric, hand up. Yeah.
I've always felt that when we do these one surveys, they're okay and we get the data that we need, but I've always been surprised that we haven't developed kind of a monthly report that a vendor knit if you're active with really simple information. Something that takes 5 minutes just to verify if that vendor number is accepting referrals or not, for example, and trying to get that once a month for providers. And if you don't do it, I guess there doesn't need to be a consequence, but then service coordinators could see which providers have recently updated their profile to show that they have, openings. But this always comes up. I'm fine with the survey and I'm fine doing that, but I guess I would just put my suggestion to come up with a very low time, a very simple thing that a providers could do once a month to update a profile page or survey results that says, yeah, I'm accepting clients, or I'm accepting problems. We can accept ambulatory but non-ambulatory folks. So you don't want to make it too complicated, but then service coordinators could see if somebody's updated it in the or if it was updated it. So maybe they're gonna target new referrals to people who are updating it more regularly. So it's a natural, benefit consequence if folks complete it or don't. I don't know. I would say something that's almost monthly is a better plan than a one time, because things change immediately and then we're stuck. Like the last survey we did about staffing was prior to the vaccine mandate. We're like, and that changed everything. So I don't know. I would just suggest that and I don't know if other regional centers do it. I just always was surprised we didn't have something like that in the system. Suggestion.
Yeah.
If I could tag.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Eric said. I agree with that. And even if it's not monthly, I know I do a lot of planning quarterly, or at least every other month. So I know the quarterly, but I echo Eric's sentiments. It's a good practice, I think, for me as a business when someone's asking me, so that I make it a part of a priority. But, whether it's every month, every other month, or at a minimum quarterly. So just wanted to echo that.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Stephanie, and I will write down that Eric was the first one that recommended you guys have to do monthly reporting to us, not John Decker. And so with this, though, one thing I would envision or an idea about this, because we've certainly talked about this, and Gary and Carly had the pleasure of hearing about the employment survey yesterday because they're going to be relaunching the employment survey. And so we can get some follow-up information, a year later on kind of where folks are at as well. But many of you would be aware that on Alta's website, we have a service provider portal that allows folks to be able to see who you guys are. And it comes directly out of our current service providers. Whoops, sorry. Should just scroll down. Service provider directory. So you can go to our service provider directory, and this pulls information directly out of our system, and you can see the 505s in our area. What I would, because we're pulling this information, it would be one thing that would be interesting to see is whether or not we can add additional information about whether or not you're accepting referrals or not. Like whether or not you have the ability to accept referrals and whether or not we can make that a public facing type of thing. I know that we at least would love to have that something internally here at our regional center so that we have updated information, and quarterly would certainly be better than what we have now, which is nothing, and monthly would be, very well updated. But it's just figuring out like the next, I think it's just figuring out like how do we operationalize it, and then how do we capture the things that we really need to. Like I would love to be able to, incorporate availability for referrals and also languages spoken, for example, and then have that like public portal. Like there should not be any secrets about these things, folks, like whether or not people accept referrals or don't accept referrals. If we have a referral hold on someone, then we should have that information, like they would not be able to receive a referral. That would be the way that it is. And we all know that that's the way this is all going, right? Is that everything that goes on quality assurance wise is eventually going to be completely published out there, searchable, just like it is for community care licensing. I foresee that in the upcoming years, you will see something very similar for regional center actions that are taken as well. We've already seen the corrective action plans and the sanctions letters having to go over to the Department of Developmental Services. So I'm going to work on some ideas about doing a survey. We're going to talk about the ideas of the ability to keep updated information about your availability to receive referrals. And actually, and service coordinators would love it because then it's just like right there too.
That's always been the concern, John, on how to keep that alive data updated.
Yeah.
And so,
Yep. Eric, yeah.
Just one, if the system could be set up that sends a notification out at the beginning of every month. Here's your profile if you need to change it. Like here's the information we have for you. Here's how, and we use this information to place people referrals. So that way, even if I have to update it, I can update it. I don't update it every month. And then there's some ways to at least put that onus on the provider in a way that's pretty simple. And they can see, it shows me as closed. I'm open now. I'm going to change that. So there's a couple of things I think if we come up with a system that could be pretty useful and not labor intensive.
So we have like over 2,000 clients more now than we did before COVID started, right? We know that we are going to looking at a huge expansion on the EI side of things. We know that we're looking at a continued increased growth in like case finding activities, outreach activities to get more people brought into the system. And ideas like this and these portals and the transparency and things, it will make things so much easier because we are not going to continue. I mean, we've had great residential care home growth. I will be honest, like we continue to have, a really large number of applicants, and our staff are really getting those folks through and getting homes open, across the board. We have, we're going to do an announcement amongst our community services specialists, but we're going to be bringing on another community services specialist to help support the work with EI and camp and everything else, because look at Christina. Oh my God, sweet relief. But there is so much going on right now that we really need to have all the supports for our case management staff that are trying to have all of these meetings, and then all the service providers too. So just we need to keep having these discussions. And I think you guys are letting me know that, okay, you're saying this is so serious. This is all happening before January 1. Let's figure out a good system, hopefully between now and then, so that we can have a better shot at getting the information to people quickly, accurately, up to date. And so I am going to be working on this. And in the meantime, I'll be working on just what we want as far as information from you all initially, related to your availability. Part of this is like if you write a survey and your survey responses say some of the things that I heard from vendors this week, we're going to want a meeting with you. Like we're going to want to have a meeting with you to talk about like, oh my gosh, you're planning on closing, or you're planning on drastically changing things, and financially, is this going to work out for you? Like we want to be able to have these discussions. So that's part of this as well, is that we don't need like a novel for a response, but we do need to be able to prompt meetings, make sure that I'm available, our accounting staff are available, all of our specialists are available to answer questions. Because like just the meetings that Gina and I were in this week, and others, like we heard some things that are going to make us really question the availability of things come January 1, and we want to be able to provide better guidance for our staff. Okay, that was 50 minutes for topic number 1. For our meeting that I was planning on doing for like 20 minutes. So that's alternative services, and we'll certainly be talking more and more about that. In the budget stuff is in the side there. Thanks for your comments there. I'm going to jump over to some things that are going on with the Department of Developmental Services and some other stuff. So I'm going to share my screen real quickly. This is Department of Developmental Services. Apply for grants for increasing employment opportunities. That was the front page of the website. And there's the guidelines. Did anyone attend the bidders conference yesterday for the employment grants? Any service provider attend the bidders conference to possibly look at doing one of these? Do we have any providers that might be interested in doing this? Is everyone?
Yes, I did. Sorry, I typed it in the thing. This is Andrea from Alliance.
You did? How did it go? What were your thoughts?
I had heard a little after, but it was interesting. It's a good. It seems pretty open and will be a good place for folks who are looking to transition some stuff or start new programs like employment related. I just still had some questions regarding if I could enhance my services. So I have to check back in as far as we already provide some employment stuff, but if we get additional grant funding to enhance like our staffing things. But it seems like there's a lot of room for some sort of grant for folks. I mean, I think it seemed a little more open. I don't know if that makes sense, but not so like.
No, I absolutely get it. So it looks like there is open applications broadly, community-based organizations, colleges and universities, and employment providers. It does look like the funds are looked to be able to be paid out December 1st, anticipated to begin. And the grant awards will be on the 30th. I don't know exactly how we're going to do the funding for these. I would assume that the regional centers are going to administrate it because that's usually what we do for these types of things. But thank you very much for attending that one. And we hope that folks will do this. We hope that folks are going to be interested in this. Of course, DDS, doesn't require people to show up for meetings anymore. Everything is online now. So there's the PowerPoint from the presentation that was given and a bunch of additional information right on DDS's website to make things as accessible as possible to folks. So just want to encourage folks. It looks like it's $10 million to be split up. So for folks that are looking at ways of, changing their programs around, etc., this might be an opportunity for it. Let's see here. Oh gosh, we landed at 42% when it came to the rate study. Excuse me, not rate study. We came out at 42% when it came to the DSP workforce survey. So I will say for large regional centers, we were towards the top of the percentage of service providers that got it done. The small regional centers like Redwood Coast, I think they were above 50%. But most regional centers were in the I think there was only one that was in the 20% range, but appreciate we had a little bit of a slow start to it, but a lot of folks looked like they did it towards the end. And I have not heard any additional information about that from DDS, but just wanted to share with folks that we appreciate that folks did that. Hopefully folks get their $8,000 now from the state for doing it. I'm not sure how they were planning on paying that out. I would assume the contractor that's did the surveys, is going to be responsible for that. And again, we had a big plea from our provider advisory committee for folks to do that, and so we appreciate that they have. I'm going to then share my screen real quickly with the program development grants. So cycle 45 for the flyers and the RFPs, and this just came out. So this is State Council on Developmental Disabilities, and this goes out to community-based organizations. Program development grants are used by the council to meet federal, state mandates and provide resources to build new and innovative programs and services. So again, funding that could be available to provide some supports for innovative ways of doing services that hopefully you're thinking about as we transition away from alternative services. And I just dropped that in the chat for folks. Additionally, on our website, if you go to the front page of our website, alterregional.org, everyone sees our website, I hope. All right. And so if you scroll down on the front page, you will see ACRC strategic plan. So we mentioned last time we went over the newsletter that went out for our agency, and in the newsletter, we talked about the main portions of the strategic plan, what the focus areas are. Definitely want to thank our community providers, certainly community providers that participated in the discussions related to this, the clients, the family members related to the development, the board members for the strategic plan. It was quite a bit of work, but it's available on our website. And again, client and family supports, employment, housing and living options, and community inclusion and engagement are the four big focus areas. So you can imagine that over the next 3 years, you will see, a lot of activities that the regional center will be doing as it relates to initiatives, things like that, that are tied to those four different strategic areas. I think you guys already hear a lot from me about different housing stuff that is going on. And so that's certainly one of the aspects of it. But I think we'll look forward to talking about the different employment opportunities and different ways that we can promote community inclusion and engagement and look at those client and family supports as well. So certainly we'll be sharing more with that during our board meetings as we go through these next few years as well, talking about how our activities in essence are aligning with our strategic plan. Alrighty, I want to do, oops, I stopped sharing right when I wanted to share Cindy Lay's stuff again. We know that not everyone got in their HCBS validation plans. And for those folks that were not able to get in their HCBS validation plans, you move over to the remediation list. We had our community services specialist that got an excellent training from Cindy Lay on what their responsibilities are. I believe we have 300 plus that had validation requirements. We know that the contractor that works with the Department of Developmental Services is conducting some of these reviews, but like some of them may have come out or did a virtual site assessment of you. It's PCG is the name of their contractor. But just wanted to share with folks, go to Alta's website, type in HCBS, it's going to pop up, and in the chat right here is again the directions on where to get the PowerPoint presentation that Cindy Lay put out, and it's got information in here. It talks about the validation and remediation process letter. All of the information is right here. I guess as a reminder, we don't need, hundreds and hundreds of pages of things. We really just need those, like a page or two within your program design that maybe changes and talks about more inclusive activities that you're offering for your clients, and how you're, maybe some of the restrictive things that were in your program design previously are now being changed. Things that you've done to get yourself in alignment with HCBS. Hopefully that does not mean like 200 pages worth of stuff, because again, we're really just looking at a confirmation of your self-assessment, and then for your remediation, that you've provided those documents that are going to get you to the point where you're in line with the HCBS standards. So Cindy is going to be back next week for this discussion where she can go more into the remediation questions that folks have. And again, our community services specialists now have been trained on this as well. And we did record the training for anyone that was gone that day for our community services specialists too, so that we can ensure that our specialists all get to watch the training that we did this week on how they're going to be processing it on their end. Let's see. I think that hit all of my agenda items. Community services specialists. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask if anyone from service coordination or case management has anything. Let's see. Oh, and we have a chat comment too. So anything from staff? Kelsey, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to share, since we had talked about it here, about the dental budget
Yes.
ask through the California Dental Association. We had asked for some advocacy assistance and wanted to share that we did get a $25 million grant on the budget to build and expand dental services for persons with special health care needs. So just wanted to say thank you to those of you who assisted in that advocacy to get that on the bill. Very excited.
And I'm 99% sure it's actually 25 million over the next 2 years. So I think
25 million?
I think the full 50 million was granted.
Oh,
Just
okay. That's
25
awesome.
million this year, and then 25 million next year for that.
Even better.
To do the grants. I believe that because when you think about it too, that allows them time to be able to administer the grants and everything else. So, and these are up to $5 million, right? We learned.
Mhm. Yes.
And we think we've even got a local provider that might
We
be
do.
interested in
Yeah, I think we have a
applying
really
for-
good shot at getting a grant in our for a facility in our area. So I'm really excited.
And with that, we do want to say we are doing a goal that we are going to do a feature on our dental clinic for our September. Excuse me, no, it'll be October's one newsletter. So Kelsey's like furiously working on things, like 1,000 things, but one of them being trying to get the dental clinic directions very clear for service coordinators, communities, families, and so we're going to try to get things as close as we can before the quarter ends here, and try to get some additional information out to folks because we know people are just desperate to utilize it, but we want to ensure that we've got the referral information and the expectations for our service coordinators on what they're supposed to do really really clear. So thanks folks very much. Next week, please reach out to Jordan and Jean primarily. If you need to reach out to community services, Olivia will be out. I will be out. And again, just thanks very much, folks, for all of the supports providing to our clients and to our community in general, because we recognize how very challenging things certainly are right now. And we'll update you more about COVID things as well. I think next week too, if we can get a little information from community care licensing next week in our meeting. All right. Thank you folks very much. Have a great weekend. Take care. Appreciate everyone.